My nephew stood in my living room and told me the bank was foreclosing on my house next week. He spread fake legal documents across my coffee table with a smirk on his face. He had no idea that the struggling students I'd tutored for 32 years had grown up to become doctors, lawyers, and prosecutors. And they were about to teach him a lesson he would never forget. You won't believe what happened next. But before we continue, if you love stories about justice, family, and karma, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because what happened on Monday morning will restore your faith that real family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them most. My name is Harrison Mitchell. I'm 67 years old, a retired high school teacher from Richmond Hill, Ontario. For 32 years, I taught mathematics at Riverside Secondary School. Not because it paid well, because it didn't. Not because I wanted prestige, because teachers rarely get that. I taught because I believed that every struggling student deserved someone in their corner. Someone who wouldn't give up on them when everyone else already had. My nephew, Brandon Walsh, had been circling my property like a vulture for 6 months. Ever since property values in the Greater Toronto Area hit record highs. Ever since houses on my quiet tree-lined street started selling for $1.4 million. But that Thursday afternoon in late October, Brandon finally showed his true colors. He walked into my home without knocking. Spread foreclosure documents across my coffee table, the same table where I'd tutored hundreds of struggling students over 3 decades, and informed me that his lawyer had already drawn up power of attorney papers. I was losing my cognitive abilities, he claimed. His parents needed a place to live. I needed professional care at Maple Grove Retirement Community. The papers were ready to sign. His parents would take over the mortgage payments, handle everything. I just needed to make this easy on everyone. What Brandon didn't know was that I'd been expecting this. What he didn't know was that those struggling students had kept in touch. They'd become successful, grateful, and fiercely loyal. And they were about to show him exactly what happens when you threaten the man who changed their lives. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. Brandon Morrison Walsh is my older sister's son. He's 32 years old, works in property management and real estate consulting, or at least he used to. For the past 2 years, ever since his parents ran into financial trouble and lost their condo in Mississauga, Brandon had been dismissing me, disrespecting me, treating me like I was an inconvenient obstacle standing between him and $1 million property. You were just a high school teacher, he'd say whenever his mother asked him to show me respect. You lived on a teacher's salary. My dad built a real business before the economy tanked. Brandon saw what he wanted to see. An old man driving a 2009 Honda Accord. Shopping at discount grocery stores. Living on a pension of $42,000 a year. He saw my modest 2-story brick house that I'd called home since 1992. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,800 square feet on a tree-lined street that had exploded in value. Houses on my block were selling for $1.4 million. Mine was paid off except for $60,000 remaining on a second mortgage I'd taken out to help my sister through cancer treatment 5 years ago. What Brandon didn't see was the wall of photographs in my hallway. 317 pictures spanning 3 decades. High school graduations, university degrees, professional certifications, wedding photos, newborn babies held by grateful parents who called me Uncle Harrison. He walked past them every family dinner, never asking a single question, never wondering why so many people sent me Christmas cards, never curious about why my phone rang constantly with former students checking in. Harrison, you need to think about your future, he'd say, eyeing my kitchen. This house is way too much for one person to maintain. My parents are struggling financially. They could really use the space, and you could use the care. His mother, Margaret, my older sister, would shoot him warning looks across the table. Brandon, that's not appropriate. I'm just being practical, Mom. Uncle Harrison is 67. He's showing signs of memory loss. Last week, he couldn't remember where he parked at the grocery store. I'd simply walked to the store that day, but Brandon twisted it into evidence of cognitive decline. This house would be perfect for you and Dad, he continued. Uncle Harrison could get proper supervision at Maple Grove. They have activities, medical staff, everything he needs. The mortgage is almost paid off. You two could handle the last $60,000. Build some equity. It's win-win. Win-win. Like I hadn't spent 32 years building something far more valuable than real estate equity. Brandon assumed my quiet responses meant confusion, weakness. When I'd say, let me think about it, or we'll discuss this later, he'd exchange knowing glances with his parents like the matter was already settled. Last month, he started getting aggressive. Uncle Harrison, you don't even have kids, he said during Sunday dinner at Margaret's apartment. When you pass away, this house should go to actual family who can use it. My parents raised 2 children. You chose not to have any. This property should stay in the bloodline. I'd chosen not to have biological children, yes. My wife Catherine and I made that decision together before she passed away 12 years ago from breast cancer. We decided to invest our time, energy, and resources into the hundreds of students who needed us. But Brandon didn't understand that kind of investment. He only understood property values and inheritance rights. Uncle Harrison, I'm trying to help you, he'd say, his voice dripping with false concern. You're getting older. What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the stove? What if something happens and nobody's there. Meanwhile, I'd watch him calculate. Watch him measure rooms with his eyes. Watch him discuss renovation plans with his wife when they thought I couldn't hear. We could knock out this wall, expand the kitchen. New appliances, granite countertops. This place could be worth 1.6, 1.7 easily. He wasn't worried about my safety. He was worried about missing out on a property windfall. Then came that Thursday afternoon, October 26th, 2:30 in the afternoon. I was grading practice tests for my current tutoring students. Yes, even in retirement, I still tutored. 3 students came to my house every week. Kids who were struggling with math, who couldn't afford expensive tutoring services, who needed someone to believe in them, just like I'd always done. Brandon's car pulled into my driveway, a leased BMW that he could barely afford. He climbed out wearing an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He didn't knock, just used the spare key Margaret had given him for emergencies. "Uncle Harrison, we need to talk." His voice had that edge, that tone people use when they've already made a decision and they're just informing you of it. He spread documents across my coffee table. Official-looking papers with Bank of Montreal letterhead, foreclosure notices, default warnings, payment schedules showing I was 6 months behind on my mortgage. None of it was real, of course. I'd never missed a mortgage payment in my life. But the forgeries were good, professional, convincing enough to scare an elderly person who wasn't paying attention. "The bank is foreclosing," Brandon said, his voice full of fake sympathy. "You're 6 months behind on payments. They're taking the house in 7 days unless someone intervenes." I looked at the documents without touching them. "I'm not behind on any payments, Brandon." "Uncle Harrison, I know this is hard to accept." He pulled out more papers. "These are from your bank statements. I've been monitoring your accounts. You're not managing your finances properly." That's when I understood. He'd somehow gotten access to my banking information, probably through Margaret, who I'd made a joint account holder years ago for emergencies. He'd been watching my accounts, waiting for an opportunity. When he couldn't find real financial problems, he'd created fake ones. "I've already spoken with a lawyer," Brandon continued. "Given your cognitive decline and financial mismanagement, we need to establish power of attorney. My parents need housing. You need care. This solves both problems." He pushed more papers toward me. Real power of attorney documents this time. Not forged, legally binding if I signed them. Just sign here and here. My parents can move in next week. They'll take over the mortgage, handle all the bills. You'll be moved to Maple Grove by the end of the month. They have a room ready for you. I looked at this man, this blood relative who decided that family meant he was entitled to my home, my independence, my life's work. And I made a phone call. Just one call. To Dr. Elena Rodriguez, my former student who'd graduated in 2003. Who'd struggled with calculus until I spent 6 months tutoring her every Tuesday and Thursday after school, who'd gone on to become a prominent physician and was now chief of emergency medicine at Sunnybrook Hospital. "Elena," I said when she answered, "it's Harrison Mitchell. I need that favor we discussed." She'd been waiting for this call, because I'd warned her 3 weeks ago that Brandon was getting aggressive, that he might try something, that I might need help. "On it, Mr. Mitchell," she said. "Give me 90 minutes. Brandon looked confused. "Who was that?" "Just handling some business," I replied calmly. "Brandon, I'm not signing anything today. I suggest you leave." His face went red. "Uncle Harrison, you're not thinking clearly. This is for your own good. The bank is taking this house in 7 days. If you don't sign these papers, you'll have nothing. No house, no care, nothing. My parents will lose their chance at stability. Is that what you want?" Then he played his final card. "I have medical documentation," he said, pulling out more papers. "From your doctor, showing cognitive decline, memory issues, inability to manage daily activities. This was enough for the court to grant me power of attorney even without your signature. I'm trying to be respectful. I'm giving you a choice. But one way or another, this house is becoming my parents' home next week." The medical documents were forged too, obviously. I hadn't seen my doctor in 6 months except for a routine checkup where I'd been given a clean bill of health. But Brandon had created an entire paper trail, a false narrative of decline that looked convincing on the surface. I smiled. Not a friendly smile. The smile of a teacher who knows a student is about to fail a test they thought they'd ace. "Brandon," I said quietly, "I think you should wait here for a bit. Some people are coming to meet you." "What people?" "You'll see." By 4 o'clock, my quiet street in Richmond Hill looked like a luxury car convention. A Mercedes S-Class, a BMW 7 Series, a Tesla Model S, an Audi A8, a Porsche Cayenne. Car after car pulled up and parked. Men and women in business suits, medical scrubs, professional attire climbed out and walked toward my house. Brandon watched through the window, his confidence starting to crack. "Uncle Harrison, who are these people?" "People who matter," I replied. Dr. Elena Rodriguez arrived first, 40 years old, confident, carrying a medical bag. Behind her came David Lee, who'd struggled with algebra in 2001 until I tutored him through graduation. Now he was a prominent defense attorney with one of Toronto's top law firms. Then Sophia Patel, who'd nearly dropped out in 2005 before I convinced her she was brilliant. Now she was a crown prosecutor with the Attorney General's office. Then Marcus Johnson, who I'd tutored in 2008. Now a successful engineer and president of the Richmond Hill Community Association. Then Dr. Rebecca Thompson, my former student from 1997. Now a neuropsychologist specializing in cognitive assessments. Then 23 more former students. Each one successful. Each one grateful. Each one ready to protect the man who'd protected them. They filled my living room. Standing room only. Brandon stood frozen in the corner, finally understanding he'd miscalculated badly. Elena spoke first. Her voice was professional, clinical, devastating. Mr. Walsh, I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Chief of Emergency Medicine at Sunnybrook Hospital. I'm here in my capacity as Mr. Mitchell's personal physician. I've reviewed the medical documents you're presenting as evidence of cognitive decline. She held up Brandon's forged papers. These documents are fabricated. Mr. Mitchell has never been treated by the physician whose name appears on these forms. I've contacted that doctor directly. He has no record of Mr. Mitchell as a patient and is prepared to testify that his signature was forged. Additionally, I performed a comprehensive cognitive assessment on Mr. Mitchell 2 weeks ago, anticipating this exact situation. She pulled out a thick medical report. His cognitive function is excellent, above average for his age group. No signs of dementia, memory loss, or impairment of any kind. He is fully capable of managing his own affairs. Any claim otherwise is fraudulent. Brandon's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. I was just trying to help. David Lee stepped forward next. The lawyer. Calm, methodical, terrifying. Mr. Walsh, I'm David Lee, senior partner at Harrison & Associates. I've reviewed the foreclosure documents you presented to Mr. Mitchell. He held up Brandon's fake bank papers. These documents are forgeries. I've contacted Bank of Montreal directly. They have no foreclosure proceedings against Mr. Mitchell. He is current on all mortgage payments. Has been for 30 years. Creating and presenting fraudulent legal documents is a serious criminal offense. Elder fraud, attempted theft, forgery. We're looking at potential federal charges. Then Sophia Patel spoke, the Crown prosecutor. Her voice was ice. Mr. Walsh, I'm Sophia Patel with the Attorney General's office. I want to be very clear about your legal position. Attempting to defraud an elderly person of their property using forged documents is elder abuse under the criminal code. It carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. Forging legal and medical documents adds additional charges. Each forgery is a separate offense. Attempting to obtain power of attorney through fraud is another offense. At this point, you're looking at multiple felony charges. I strongly suggest you consult with a lawyer immediately. Brandon tried to speak, but no words came out. Marcus Johnson stepped forward next, the community leader. Mr. Walsh, I'm Marcus Johnson, president of the Richmond Hill Community Association. Mr. Mitchell has been a pillar of this community for 32 years. He's tutored hundreds of local students, many of whom have gone on to successful careers. He's attended every community meeting, volunteered at every charity event, helped countless families. This community will not stand by while someone attempts to steal his home through fraud. I've already contacted every local news outlet. CBC Toronto, CTV, Global News. They're all very interested in the story of a greedy nephew attempting elder fraud against a beloved retired teacher. The story will run tonight unless you leave this house immediately and never return. Dr. Rebecca Thompson spoke last. The neuropsychologist. Mr. Walsh, I performed a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation of Mr. Mitchell yesterday. 6 hours of testing, memory, cognitive function, executive reasoning, judgment, decision-making capacity. Her report was massive, official, irrefutable. Mr. Mitchell's results place him in the 92nd percentile for his age group. His memory is excellent. His judgment is sound. He is fully competent to manage his own affairs, make his own decisions, and certainly to recognize fraud when he sees it. Any court in Canada would laugh your power of attorney petition out of the courtroom. Brandon finally found his voice. It was small, shaky, desperate. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to help my uncle. My parents are struggling. I thought he needed assistance. No, David Lee said quietly. You thought he was an easy target. You thought because he was a teacher, because he lived modestly, because he was kind and patient, that he was weak. You thought you could bully an elderly man out of his home and nobody would stop you. You were wrong. Elena Rodriguez stepped closer to Brandon. Her voice was gentle but firm. Mr. Mitchell isn't just our former teacher, Mr. Walsh. He's family. Real family. The kind that shows up. The kind that invests in your future when nobody else will. The kind that believes in you when you've stopped believing in yourself. Every person in this room succeeded because Mr. Mitchell gave us his time, his patience, his belief. Some of us came from poverty. Some of us came from broken homes. Some of us were failing school and had given up. Mr. Mitchell never gave up on us. He tutored us for free, fed us when we were hungry, drove us to SAT prep courses, wrote recommendation letters, attended our graduations, our weddings, our children's births. He's Uncle Harrison to 47 children who aren't his biological kids but call him family anyway. So when we heard you were threatening him, when we heard you were trying to steal his home, we didn't hesitate. Not for a second. She looked around the room at all the successful, grateful former students. This is what family looks like, Mr. Walsh. Not blood relation. Not inheritance rights. Not property claims. This is choice, investment, loyalty, love. You threatened the wrong man. The room was silent. Brandon stood there, surrounded by lawyers, doctors, prosecutors, and community leaders who'd all come running when their beloved teacher called. His entire scheme, his forged documents, his fake medical reports, his power of attorney papers, everything was falling apart. I finally spoke. My voice was calm, measured, the same tone I'd used for 32 years when teaching difficult lessons. Brandon, I want you to understand something. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. You're my nephew. I've known you since you were born. I've watched you grow up. And somewhere along the way, you learned to value property over people, money over relationships, inheritance over integrity. That's not your parents' fault. Margaret and Thomas are good people who made some bad financial decisions, but they never would have done this. This was all you. You saw an opportunity to get something valuable and you took it, regardless of who you hurt. I stood up and walked to my wall of photographs, pointed to the 317 pictures. These are my children, Brandon. Not biological, but real. Every single person in this room, every student I tutored who went on to succeed, every struggling kid I fed dinner to before study sessions, every teenager I drove to college interviews, every young adult I mentored through career decisions. They're my legacy, my family, my wealth. You wanted to take my house because you thought it was all I had. But I have something worth far more than real estate. I have people who love me, people who show up, people who fight for me the way I fought for them. You can't inherit that, Brandon. You can't buy it. You can't take it. You can only earn it. And you never even tried. The room was completely silent. Brandon looked around at all these successful people who'd dropped everything to protect their former teacher. Then he looked at me, and for the first time I saw genuine shame in his eyes. I need to go, he whispered. Yes, David Lee said. You do. And Mr. Walsh, if you ever contact Mr. Mitchell again, if you ever come near this property again, if you ever attempt any further fraud or harassment, I will personally ensure you face the full weight of criminal prosecution. Do you understand? Brandon nodded. He gathered his forged documents with shaking hands, walked to the door, paused. Uncle Harrison, I'm sorry. I know, I said quietly, but sorry isn't enough. Actions have consequences. You'll learn that now. He left. His BMW pulled out of my driveway and disappeared down the street. The man who'd planned my eviction had been reduced to a stammering shell by the simple presence of my family. My real family. The one that mattered. The aftermath spread through Richmond Hill like wildfire. By noon the next day, the story was on CBC Toronto. Former students defend beloved teacher from Nephew's foreclosure scheme. The article hit 50,000 views by evening. The comments were overwhelming. This is what education does. This is what real family looks like. That nephew got exactly what he deserved. But the consequences went beyond social media. Tuesday morning, Brandon's employer, a property management company in Mississauga, terminated his contract. We can't have someone on our team who attempts elder abuse, his boss told him. The optics are terrible. The financial consequences were just beginning. Margaret and Thomas Walsh, humiliated by their son's actions, moved to Thunder Bay to live near Thomas's brother. We can't stay here after what Brandon did, Margaret told me in a tearful phone call. Harrison, I'm so sorry. I should have stood up for you. I should have stopped him. Brandon's girlfriend left him within a week. She'd seen the video, read the comments, heard the full story. I can't be with someone who'd do that to family, she told mutual friends. But perhaps the most devastating consequence was professional. Brandon worked in property management and real estate consulting. The video followed him everywhere. Potential clients Googled his name and found the story. Business contacts stopped returning calls. His reputation was destroyed. Meanwhile, the positive effects for my real family were extraordinary. The viral video led to donations for a new scholarship fund exceeding $200,000. The Harrison Mitchell Education Fund, administered by York University, would provide tutoring and mentorship for struggling students across the Greater Toronto area. 15 retired teachers contacted me, inspired to start similar tutoring programs in their communities. The ripple effect was spreading. Jason Chen, one of my current tutoring students who'd witnessed everything, graduated that spring with honors and immediately got hired by a tech company. But he didn't move out. Mr. Mitchell, would you mind if I stayed another year? I'd like to help you tutor the next generation. Of course, Jason. There's always room. And every Sunday, former students would drop by. Sometimes just for coffee. Sometimes bringing their children to meet Uncle Harrison. Sometimes bringing new struggling students who needed what they'd once needed. Brandon had wanted to prove that blood makes family. Instead, he'd proven the opposite. Choice makes family. Investment makes family. Showing up makes family. Biology is just biology. Family is everything else. 7 months later, I was grading practice tests for my current tutoring students when Brandon's car pulled into my driveway. He climbed out slowly, his confidence replaced by something that looked like genuine humility. He'd lost weight, gained gray hair, and carried himself like a man who'd learned brutal lessons. Uncle Harrison, could we talk? I set down my red pen and looked at the man who'd once tried to take everything from me. What's on your mind, Brandon? I owe you an apology. A real one. His voice shook. I was wrong about everything. About family, about what matters, about respect. I let financial desperation convince me that I was entitled to something that wasn't mine. I convinced myself you were just a teacher, that your work didn't matter as much as my parents' needs. I was wrong. You built something I'll never have. You have people who love you, who fight for you, who show up for you. I have nothing. I lost my job, my girlfriend, my reputation, my friends. I lost everything because I tried to take something that wasn't mine. And the worst part is, I lost the chance to know you, to learn from you, to understand what you understood all along, that the measure of a life isn't property or money. It's the people whose lives you've touched. I appreciate that, Brandon. Could there ever be forgiveness? From my mother? From you? I looked at this broken man and saw what I'd always seen in struggling students who came to my door. Someone capable of change, capable of growth, capable of becoming better. Family isn't who shares your blood, Brandon. It's who chooses to invest in your future, who shows up when you need them, who believes you can change. Real forgiveness requires real change. Are you ready for that kind of work? He nodded, tears in his eyes. Then we'll see what's possible. I invited him in, not because blood made us family, but because forgiveness, real forgiveness, requires giving people the chance to become better than they were. The same chance I'd given 317 struggling students over 32 years. The same chance that had built a family more valuable than any property. The same chance that had taught me the most important lesson of all, that the impact we have on others lasts far longer than any house we might own. That the investments we make in people pay dividends that compound for generations. That family isn't about blood or inheritance or property rights. It's about showing up. It's about choosing each other. It's about investing in futures you'll never fully see. Brandon walked into my house that day, not as the entitled nephew who tried to steal my home, but as another struggling student who needed someone to believe he could change, and maybe, just maybe, he could. Because that's what teachers do. We believe in the possibility of change, even when everyone else has given up, especially then. If you're watching this, let me know what makes someone family to you. And remember, the greatest inheritance you can leave isn't property or money. It's the impact you have on the people whose lives you touch. That's the legacy that lasts. That's the wealth that matters. That's the family that shows up when you need them most. And that's worth more than any house could ever be.